It is important for the people around that person suffering to look out for themselves too, right?
So it doesn't become a pattern in your own life, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Twin Talks. I'm Nadia.
And I'm Nikki.
Today our topic will be about living with someone who has problematic substance abuse. So take it away, Nick.
It's really a difficult situation to be in, especially if you're a family member or a friend, somebody that you love, because it becomes very stressful, right?
Right.
The hardest part is sometimes that person who's using really has no idea the level of stress they cause. They're not doing it purposefully,
No.
but it still impacts the family. What's the difference between regular kind of fun and then people who are having problems?
With addiction of alcohol
Or whatever, yeah.
or whatever, they could be drinking every night, a whole lot of drinks per hour. It could be binge drinking. It could be drug abuse, like other drug abuse, I should say. What do you think?
I guess the distinction, though, between people who just like some wine at dinner or like to have different substances is that it's starting to affect their work. Like they're not getting up in the morning or whenever they have to work. Their performance in their life is going downhill. They're not able to cope. And also the last thing too is they've built up a tolerance for this substance or this habit or whatever, and they don't feel like they can withdraw from it without some sort of physiological issues.
Right. So the people who are living with the person who has the substance abuse problem, it can be very stressful and it can be very subtle, and we take on different roles, right? So what are some of the roles? Because when you're living in it, you may not know that you're living in it, if that makes sense. Usually the person who is having the problem is, if you visualize them in the center of the family, and they're usually the center of attention, and then if there's children, usually each person takes on a specific role. So why don't we talk about some of the roles, because when you're living it, you don't necessarily know that you're actually in that role to cope, right?
Yeah.
Let's
It's kind of a subliminal thing, because in a families where you have somebody who's abusing to the level that it's becoming an addiction, people formulate around, like what Nad was saying, the addict, and so that addict is become the focus of
in the center of attention.
So your first one, and it could be anybody in the family, they start taking on perfectionistic qualities, right? They want to be that high level achiever, whether it's academic, athletic, or whatever, and they have really high unrelenting standards, right?
Another one is usually, not all the time, but the partner usually becomes the codependent. They start making excuses for the person and starts trying to avoid the shame around it. So they start making excuses and doing things so that they can cope.
Yeah, and it starts to enable that addict to be able to get through, right? There's other ones, like somebody who's like that peacemaker. Yeah. The one who wants to sort of placate all the family dynamics and relationships.
Yeah. And then there's the one that's the dark horse, the one that completely rebels and goes by rebelling to get attention or to shift the attention from the addict. That's usually another role, right?
Yeah. And then the last one, and it comes
more than one.
They come up a lot, but the one who tries to add some levity to the situation by cracking jokes and becoming the prankster and just trying to make the whole atmosphere a little bit lighter.
Right. And then the other one is the one that they just stick their head in the sand and just avoid the situation altogether, and that's different coping strategies, right? But at the end of the day, the person who's the narcissistic, it's usually a narcissistic central attention, is the addict. And everybody's sort of working around the addict. What are the neighbors going to think? We're trying to collectively cover the shame and the, you know.
When you're in this situation, this is not happening, like, you're not knowing these roles. You just sort of subliminally take them on. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it isn't. But we're just trying to bring awareness to these roles. You might not get every single role in every single family, but to realize that there's help out there, and it's really going to be up to the person who's suffering from this problem to try and help, and the family can help support. And they'll need to do support sometimes by helping them get to an intervention, helping them get help, or to get them off whatever substance they're on. But I'll say that's a really hard thing, because sometimes it has to come from that person suffering. And therein lies the big problem.
But there's psychological effects for the people who are living with the addict, and we need to understand that there's, depending on what the substance abuse is, family members can get help. There's Al-Anon. There's other
Serenity Renewal
in Ottawa.
In Ottawa, that is.
There's all kinds of stuff that can help.
Rita Wood. If you're in Ottawa, right?
This is it. So if you are struggling with living with someone who has substance abuse that's problematic, or you have someone in the family that has this issue, you might want to consider the roles and consider getting some help for yourself.
Because sometimes there's no shame around that, but unfortunately it's very hard for the person watching, because this is someone they love. It's not something that happens overnight, but when it does happen, it can be pretty horrible to watch and pretty traumatic. So it is important for the people around that person suffering to look out for themselves too.
So it doesn't become a pattern in your own life, right?
So hopefully you've learned something from the show. If you like us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Awesome job. Better than I did.
See you next time on Twin Talks. If you liked us, what do you do now?
You click the like button on
YouTube,
that's your role. I don't know.
Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You see, you always have a problem with me doing it. Now I threw it on you, and she doesn't know. That's you.
That's your role. So.
It's all right.
If you liked us, what
Didn't
do we do
just
again?
Say that?
Oh my God, we just did. Do it again.